Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to achieve with this series just yet, but I'm going to start a new series. So if I were to outline some key goals of this project, it's number one is to get more familiar with talking to the camera, to get my setup in a good state so that you can understand me well, you can hear the audio, you can see like the light. Number two, which is more importantly, is to create more content that is casual, that's more talking points, so that you can have a closer relationship to you guys, right? When you're asking questions and I can see them and you know that I'm committing to creating one content every single day. So in the next 60 days, things coming in. And majority of this is going to be my experience being a software engineer, and then how I transitioned into being a software engineering manager, and how I worked at Twitter, at Meta, at some startups in the past. How did I get offers from different big tech companies like Amazon, Google, Lyft, Snapchat? And I think this is valuable content because I see a lot of comments, I see a lot of questions asking about, hey, what are the things that you did to prepare? What were the skills that you need? What were the preparation that you did? What were the questions that you did? And things like that. So this is more of a unstructured conversation to create content and talk about things. So for today, that's sort of just want to get the high level goals out there. I just want to say that this is going to be a commitment for 60 days. I'm going to create content for 60 days talking about this, talking about the experience. So if you like this, make sure you hit the like and subscribe and leave a comment below in terms of what are the questions that you want to get answered or that you are curious about. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about how I got started and how I got here. Pretty high level. I'm not sure any of that is super interesting. I did share in a Medium post several years ago about how I prepared for my tech interviews and how I ended up getting offers. Check it out. I'll leave a comment in the I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can click on it and read to get more details. But at the high level, right? So I came to the US about almost 10 years ago now, or maybe actually 20 years ago. So I came here to the US in 2008. I was born and raised in Malaysia, and I came to the US. I wanted to play tennis and I wanted to get an education as well. And that's how I got started with learning. I kind of knew how to speak English and things like that because in Malaysia there was like a big thing. But some of the things that I did try out at the time was learning and playing around, but I've never actually done a lot of computer science things in the past. I've never really coded or built any big programs growing up, and even just using computer was sort of a privilege. I never had computers growing up, so that was something that was really different for me. I came to college. My first year I was just doing regular math and science courses and things like that. The second year was the first time I got in touch with computer science, and that I remember was a Python class. It was an intro to computer science, and they taught us how to use Python. It was a very simple class. They just taught you things like how do you assign things to a variable, how do you use a variable, what is a for loop, how do you use a for loop, and things like that. But it was it was a lot of fun for me because I thought it was interesting that you could play games, you can build really simple things and manipulate things to show up the way that you want on a computer. That was really interesting to me. So I decided that, hey, this seems pretty interesting. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. I needed to take that class. It wasn't because of interest, but because I was initially signed up to be a civil engineer. So in order to graduate as a civil engineer, you needed to take a course in computer science. So that's how I got into computer science. I took that course. I thought that was really interesting. And then I moved on to the second one. So CS 102, I believe that was what it was called. And this was the difficult class, right? The professor was very strict. It was still the same professor from the first class, but I remember very distinctly that the courses, the assignments were definitely harder. The professor was much more strict, and a lot of people really struggled with this. And I think later on, looking after the fact, I chatted with the professor and we talked about this, and she said that this was the filter class. This was basically where they figured out who are the right people who will continue in computer science and who are the people who are going to drop out. And people who usually persevere through that class are going to continue to get either computer science major or a computer engineering major. And definitely in that class, we probably had like 50 people in that class. And by the end of it, I think about half of people dropped out. And from that 25 people or so, I think half of them got a computer science degree and the other half computer engineering, right? So people who actually persevered through that class eventually got a degree that was related to computer science or computer engineering or data science, something like that. Or math. I think math was like the other big one. It was usually math, computer science, and computer engineering. So I did that for several years, and I decided to transition into being a computer science major. Definitely wasn't because I saw, Facebook was gonna be a big thing or Google was definitely a big thing. This was more of, I just thought that computer science was really fun. You could build games, you could build programs. I got a few friends from the course that really enjoyed it. So we had a lot of fun times staying overnight in the computer lab, just working on programs until 3, 4, 5 in the morning, banging our heads against keyboards. Because after Python, the other language that we learned was C++, and it was definitely so painful trying to compile, to build, and running into errors and memory leaks and trying to figure out where the issues are coming from and all of those things. So we spent tons of time together, and it was painful when it happened, but it was definitely a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of things from it. And it helped me persevere, to learn grit and learn discipline, and learning that if you really work hard enough on certain things, you can eventually get it to work. So that was my experience going through college. And the interesting thing in US college is that typically during your junior and senior years, you have a summer break and you can do internships. So I did a couple of internships when I was in college. None of them at any big tech companies, but the one that I did in my junior year was for a finance tech or fintech company. It was a sort of like a government agency where they provided accounting software to different companies. My role was not as a software engineer. I was more of a partner engineer where I sat on site to help them configure the software so that the businesses could use it. It was very simple, straightforward. There's no coding involved, none of that fancy stuff. It was just drag and drop, trying to set up a database with different columns, to do some simple entries in the databases, to correct some. So definitely not software engineering, and definitely not anything related to computer science. If you knew how to operate a computer, if you knew how to click and edit things, that was all the extent of knowledge and skills that you need. So during that time, I kind of realized that I was not learning. So I think the internship was about 3 months, and about a month into it, I kind of realized that I didn't really learn anything related to computer science. I've never used anything that I learned in class, and I was not building any apps. So at that point, I got very nervous, and I guess anxiety kind of kicked in because I was thinking about, okay, if I'm not building any apps, how am I gonna be a software engineer? So the first thing I did was I decided to join a hackathon. There were a lot of hackathons that were happening around that time. So I decided to join in one of them, and I was like, oh shoot, this is really hard. I don't know how to build an app. I don't know how to build a website. Like, none of these things were taught in school. And this was, I already gone past my junior year, right? So technically I was supposed to know all these things, but I didn't, right? And I was sitting next to like people who graduated or, either working in the industry right now, or people who graduated from like University of Washington. And that gave me an inferiority complex, right? I just felt like I was not as good as anyone else. That was a good wake-up call for me. And after that, I decided to do another internship. So I was doing 2 full-time internships at the time. I was working at this company still as an intern, and that was super relaxing. It was from 9 to 5. And then after that, I did another internship at a local startup. And I told them, I was very straight up. I was like, hey, I've got another full-time internship. I wanted to learn how to develop iOS apps. And I met the CEO of that company through one of like the hackathons, and I chatted with him, and he was very excited. He was very happy I had this grit and dedication to learn something new. So he gave me this opportunity. So I ended up working at that startup, and that's what I did, right? From Monday through Friday, like in the morning, I would go to work at the fintech company, and then at night, I would work for the other startup. But it was mostly, I was just kind of sitting at home and kind of coding and things like that. So I had to learn how iOS programming worked. I had like simple features. I had to learn how to use Git, how to use GitHub, how to commit code, how to use Xcode, how to, what is like MVC, how do you control the model, the view, all of those things. And controllers. Sorry, I was kind of forgetting MVC, right? Model view controller. So I was learning all about those things. And that lasted for about 2 months, right? So by the end of the 3 months, I completed both the internships at the same time. It was good financially too, because I was making money like both sides. So I actually made a lot of money. That was probably the most money I've ever made in my life. And I graduated then from the internships. And yeah, that's how I completed like my 2 years. I did that internship that 1 year, and then the next year, actually, that was not my junior year. That was actually my final year. So I did that one internship in my junior year, and then my senior year, I graduated. I didn't do internships, and then I got a job at a startup. Okay, so that's kind of all the things I wanted to share. I haven't talked about like the startups, but this was like me in college, my college years. How I got into computer science, my background, how I learned programming, and what were the things that I did. None of this is just saying like you should do this, right? Or you should do it. Like if you're not doing an internship in your school, you're getting it wrong. But I definitely do recommend trying out an internship if you have the experience or if you have the opportunity, because I think internships really do change both your mindset about how programming works, and it opens up you to so many opportunities, right? Because if you have that on your resume and you understand how Git works, how GitHub works, how building websites work, how do you add monitoring and all of those things, 3 months, that gives you a really good teaser of what actually being a software engineer looks like. If you like it, great, you can continue in the industry. If you don't like it, there are other paths available for you too. Like you could be a professor, right? Learn computer science, like the theoretical computer science, or do some research in AI. And that's, I think a lot of people have done it that way. It was not for me because I was more focused on making money and I wanted to get into the industry as quickly as possible. But that is definitely an option as well. So my takeaway here is, don't fret too much if you feel that in school you're not learning as much about how to program or how to build websites and how to build apps and things like that, because that's not the school's mandate, right? The school's mandate is to give you an education to teach you how the fundamentals work. And all of these application, that's more of application of building software. That's more in the industry, right? So there's a distinction there. There's the industry where they're trying to build things that people are going to use. And then there's the fundamental computer science, the theories of how computers work. So school's more about the theoretical side, and then industry is more of like the application side. So I highly recommend you try to bridge them both. I think internship's probably the best way to do it if you're still in school. I highly recommend that. But yeah, that's all the content I wanted to share today. And yeah, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experience. What was it like? And what are the struggles that you had in school? Or if you're still in school right now. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.